Property and tax and sales tax are our two biggest sources of funding that we have for the city. And right now you'll see fund balance carryover, it says 8.2%. We will, between the proposed and the adopted budget, we will rebudget funds. We carry over funds for different projects. That number will grow, and our actual total budget will grow from here. So we'll probably end up at 1.3 billion once we rebudget funds later on. And so then, and how do we use that use? So on the next slide, well, I don't know why that looks.
No,
I don't know what happened.
I haven't.
I don't know. Well, I don't. On your physical copies of this,
It's that.
it actually does.
That's what it is.
It says what it is.
Non-department.
That is so bizarre. That is really.
General government.
So
That one, general government.
yeah, general government, and then the other is non-departmental.
Carry on.
That's right.
It's very odd. And so, you see, public safety gets the lion. You know, they get almost half of the budget here. And then you'll have community services, or your parks and your libraries. You have capital maintenance is your public works and our transportation. We have non-departmental, which is things like your reserves. We have some citywide appropriations that cross the whole city. And then general government is, you know, your human resources, IT, finance, budget, things like that. So when we're looking here by category, for the city, we are really a staff. We spend most of our money on people. So you'll see personal services at 71% for the general fund. Because our general fund, when you talk about the police, fire, libraries, those types of services are more people intensive. So that's our breakdown here, and then you'll see we have the non-personal citywide, and we have a little bit for capital in here. A lot of our capital is actually funded with special funds for that. And then on our next slide, let's see. Okay, so the next couple slides, we're going through different ads that we're doing in the budget that align with the different themes that were identified in the mayor's budget message. And I didn't bring a copy of the mayor's March budget message. I don't know if I may have. I didn't bring copies for people for that one. I mean, I probably have my message, but if you're looking at this one, so when we're looking at the category of homelessness and housing, there's a number of additions that we're doing in the budget that deal with that. The first item is we are adding a position in the housing department that deals with all of the housing projects that are underway. There's the goal of trying to certainly build a home, to build 25,000 housing units. This is a staffing person that helps with technical. The homeless services staffing, that makes permanent a position that supports our rapid rehousing program. The homelessness and housing, that is the $3 million that was directed in the mayor's message to set aside for the homeless. It was really set for homeless and housing to try to look at some solutions for interim housing. So that's the focus there. In the housing department, adding a public outreach program that includes a public information representative and a public information, the manager, that's not quite the right name. There's one of them that's the rep, and then the other one, maybe it is the manager. But so there's positions that we're adding to support the housing public outreach team. For the rental rights and referrals program, we're We have budget adds in both the housing department and in the attorney's office to do phase 3 of their rental rights and referrals program. So that's a phased one with their program. So that just implements it as it was envisioned. The council had approved the plan for that, and so they're just actually implementing the next phase of that. For Project Hope program, the Project Hope team, this adds a permanent team for Project Hope, and it adds 2 community coordinators and 1 community activity worker, and there'll be a team of one of the coordinators and activity workers for Project Hope that goes into different gang impacted areas. So there's a 2-person team, and they're in one area. They're planning to move to a different part of the city, but there is also another position that's being recommended ongoing to help maintain the areas where, as that team moves into a different area, there would be a position that can help support the efforts of the community for the area that they've left. So there's a Project Hope team, and that's ongoing. So the housing development planning staffing, there's 2 planners that are recommended. That was directed in the mayor's message to help for all those planning projects to help push through the housing development with the goal of trying to get more housing built. And so there's planners, they don't want that to be the bottleneck, and so there's planning positions in there that was directed. Urban Village planning staffing, we're continuing some a grant-funded position for the Urban Village program. For the African American Community Services Agency upgrades, there's $250,000 that was directed in the message to go towards capital improvements at that facility. And so that is one of the things. That is the agency that will also be doing the meals for homeless, so they can go use that facility rather than the distribution at St. James Park. So that's one of the services that they're going to be doing, and so there's going to be some improvements to that facility. Okay, let's see, the next one's public safety. For the Office of Emergency Management staffing, we are adding, it's a total of 7 positions, but 4 of the positions are grant-funded. They're currently grant-funded, UOSI grant-funded positions that we've been doing with temporary staffing year after year. Because we get that UOSI funding pretty consistently, and we have money, at least that we know we'll have some money, we're limit dating those positions. So it's still one time, but it's just a permanent position. Well, we're adding 3 new positions in this area. We're adding a deputy director ongoing and a senior executive analyst ongoing, and then we're adding 1 senior executive analyst one time to deal with the many issues in there. There was direction to look at 5 different positions in that group, so we were able to add some resources there to deal with some of the emergency plans, CERT training. So there's things that we're looking there, and they're also adding some non-personal monies. For the aircraft rescue and firefighting, that is adding fire staff to the airport that support the airport. With the higher level of activity, they have gone to this Index D. They've actually had this higher requirement for a while. We've been staffing it with overtime. This would add permanent staff over a 2-year period to just fund that permanently with permanent staff.
I didn't see that airport as a revenue source. There is income derived from the airport for different things, their venues and vendors, fees and concessions and all that, plus aircraft landing fees and all that. I didn't see that on the income source.
That source was just for the general fund, and so we can't take, like for the airport, we can get reimbursement. The airport's reimbursing us for something we're funding in the general fund, but we can't take the airport landing fees as a source. you know, their airport funds, that's the one thing when you're looking at the budget, it's large at $3.5
Yeah, right.
billion, it's large, but a lot of those funding sources for those special funds and capital as well are restricted, so we can't use it. So we didn't do like an all funds.
So is that come under special funds? Is that?
Yes,
Oh,
it's a
okay,
special
okay,
fund.
that's right, I'm sorry, that's right.
No, that's, yeah, that's
fine,
right.
thank you.
And so, so this one just will add staffing.
So will this get reimbursed? Will this
Yes.
expense get reimbursed out of the airport?
Yeah, so the
Okay.
airport fully reimburses us for the police staffing and the fire staffing that we have there, so. The fire department, there is a management reorganization. We are eliminating 2 of the fire, and it's nice sitting next to you, 2 of the fire division chiefs, because I know you're an expert with fire stuff. We're adding 1, so we're getting rid of the division chief, 2 division chief positions, which are between a deputy chief and a battalion chief. And we're adding 1 deputy chief that will oversee training and emergency medical services, and we're adding 1 battalion chief that will serve as the safety officer. And so those are the restructuring we're doing there. And then we're adding some funding for some calibration services for some monitors, gas detection monitors. In the police department, we're also doing a staffing reorganization. We are getting rid of 6 sergeant positions that staff the pre-processing center. We have like the 24/7, we're staffing the pre-processing, but there's very few people that actually go through our pre-processing center. We're not closing the pre-processing center. They will staff it as needed if they need to process somebody through there. But we are instead going to add a captain and 4 lieutenants to help with the patrol. The lieutenants would help oversee some of the patrol divisions, and then the captain will help with patrol, and then also with the community service officers and also the crime prevention. So they're looking at a reorg there with their staffing. So the domestic violence assistance.
Excuse me, so in this reorg at the police department, is this basically sort of, we're eliminating this, but we're adding that, and we're kind of netting it all out?
It nets out. So those things sort of, those netted out. So that was a more efficient use of their resources. So we did that, because that helps them more. For domestic violence assistance, there's $150,000 to deal with, that was also directed in the mayor's message, to help with trying to find some housing and some things like that. So in the cannabis regulation staffing, we're adding 2 analyst positions, and these are fee supported, and we're eliminating a code enforcement inspector. So there's a net addition of 1 position for there, because we're eliminating 1 of the 2 code enforcement inspectors, but we're adding 2 analysts, because they thought that's a better complement for the work that they have now to do.
And that's just exclusively around cannabis?
That's just for that cannabis, yes. And this is covered by regulatory fees, so that's, the cost of the positions are covered by fees.
So we are, and what about, wasn't there a sales tax or something on cannabis?
There is, so we have, we do get revenue from, we have a marijuana business tax.
Okay.
That's I think it's 10%, and so we get, so that is a revenue generator for the city. I think it's over $12 million we're projecting for next year from that.
Does that mean, so does that mean who's going to do the code enforcement for cannabis? Or is that part of the?
So for the cannabis, so there is 1 code enforcement inspector that remains, and then there's the analytical staffing that will also help on enforcement. One of the things with most of the illegal cannabis operations, they have closed a lot down. We have 16 registered distributors or businesses. But at one point, they had more code enforcement inspectors. There was a point where we were closing down a lot of the illegal operations. So when they're looking now at what they need for police, when they were saying, and police and actually planning, building, and code enforcement, because the code enforcement positions were actually housed in PBC, planning, building, and code enforcement. They weren't housed in police, but police and PBCE, we're working at figuring out what's the best complement of staffing now, given the work and the type of work that we're doing. So they wanted to restructure that a little bit as they're seeing that. So that's what we're proposing there. We're continuing the $600,000 for the downtown foot patrol. This is the police foot patrol that they, I think it's 5 days a week. I'm going to say 5 hours. I might be wrong on that. It's in the proposal, but so we're continuing that on again next year. For the NCAA College Football Championship that will be hosted here, we are adding $750,000 in overtime for the police department for that week of activities that we are expecting. So we'll see this here. We are also adding $100,000 in our Office of Economic Development to see if there's any sort of activities or any money that we have to spend. When we had we had the Super Bowl, there were some improvements that we did, some minor improvements we did to get ready for that. And they'll have to see also with Christmas in the Park. It may change that schedule for Christmas in the Park. So there's some monies. There is $100,000 of TOT, the transient occupancy tax. We do think the event will at least cover enough to cover that $100,000, because we do expect increased hotel occupancy during that event.
I'm sorry, is this something that happens every year, this college
Oh.
and hockey?
No.
This
No, those
I
are
don't
not.
follow sports, obviously.
No.
But I did notice we put a lot of money into Super Bowl, and Comic-Con was actually brought more people into town. So I think we spent money in the wrong thing, so I'm just wondering if we learned from that.
Oh, the NHL will be at the arena here. They'll be held here, so that's local. And also with the NCAA will also be at the arena too, right?
So NCAA, that's
That's
going
at
to be
Levi's.
at
That's
the,
Levi's. That'll be at Levi's.
Levi, I was going to say, we had the 49ers
That's
play.
at
Won't be
the
on Saturday.
Oh, it's
But
football, I'm sorry.
It's football,
I
no,
thought
it is
basketball.
football,
It's football,
but
too.
a lot of the events and people will be here, and there's events that are focused, that are.
So you guys mentioned that, because I think it makes sense that hockey, I mean, we have it here in San
Yes.
Jose, but I would just say I'm worried of us investing money as a city for an event where someone else
Santa Clara.
is happening somewhere else,
Yeah.
Santa Clara has money.
Yes.
They're gonna be staying here.
So I mean,
abundance of
are we
riches.
measuring to make sure that next year before we try to welcome NCAA college football that is actually in Santa Clara? I mean, it just doesn't make sense that we would invest money without learning, do we go back and measure, was this a successful investment? Or do you guys just play it by ear?
We
or-
collect metrics, for example, coming into our airport, we gotta have, we gotta know people coming into the airport if they're
Yeah.
going to those events.
Yeah, and I'm not sure with our Office of Economic Development, I think that they will look at even trying to figure out how much was our hotel occupancy this year compared to last year at that same period of time, to see how that
So there's
works.
no way for you to know if this money that you're investing actually was in the right events?
Well, it's part, there will be a lot of economic activity. There are scheduled events that are in San Jose, so a lot of the events are going to be here.
Which is a big difference from the Super Bowl. Most of the events were in San Francisco.
No,
With this
you guys
event,
did a whole thing downtown here, I remember. And it was the following weekend when all my nerd friends showed up and we came to Comic-Con, that everything was actually used. So I'm just wondering if we're learning from when things say, you try different things and if they don't work, then you try something else. So I'm just wondering if we apply that logic here.
well, I think so. I think they are a little bit too different though. But so it's for the NCAA college football and the hockey, but those costs are for the police to make sure that the people who are going to be in downtown and the city are safe. So we're anticipating sort of a large contingent of people actually in events in San Jose. Most of those events are going to be fee funded, so they're paying for events, they're paying for the city to do certain things, whatever. But with that activity, we want to make sure that the police department has the resources to provide the security, to make sure they're on call. And so that's why that funding is here, because that event is happening. It's not that college football event is not a city-funded event that's just happening. We just need to sort of prepare to make sure our residents are safe.
Do you know if the
Quick,
county's
folks,
putting?
Hold on, let me just do a quick, excuse me, can I do a quick time check and process check? Okay, so, sorry. So I didn't set this up in advance time-wise, and I didn't set it up as like a meeting structure. So, so first time, we started late, and we're gonna end at 9:15. Many of us have to be physically home by then. So we have about an hour and 15 minutes. We have a couple things to do. One is to take advantage of the wealth of knowledge here, and then to review the budget letter in advance of the next meeting. We have to approve that budget letter at the next meeting so that it's worthy of, so that it makes it into consideration for the study week. So how long do folks think we need to review the budget letter?
So I have a question is, since our charter from the council is, you know, public safety, transportation, neighborhood quality of life, shouldn't we be focusing on those issues? I mean, we're not going to have, at least my feeling is, we wouldn't have input on the NCAA college football or the hockey program.
So
would it
thank
be
you.
possible for us to focus on those three areas that we actually are chartered to do?
Yep, so I think that overall, thank you for the feedback. So when you're, may I ask, to kind of highlight the areas that are in, we could spend all night talking about the exact issues that we was talking about. We would get so deep in the weeds, we'd be here till like 2 or 3 in the morning. So if you can highlight those where you think they apply, how long do folks think we need to look at the budget letter?
At least an hour.
At least an hour?
I would think so.
It's 8 o'clock now.
We have to
Yeah.
draft.
So did you take this last year?
Do we have any kind of a draft? She has a draft.
Yeah, we have a draft.
So how long do we want for that? We will end at 9:15.
Who said an hour? Me?
It should be less. I'm trying to
Just
remember.
Nicole, what was it like last year?
It doesn't apply.
Yeah.
It's, the past is not a guide.
I think
So-
you'll allow an hour,
Allow an hour? Okay.
so 15 minutes.
Does that give you what you need?
Yes, I could go much faster on this
Okay.
stuff. I do not have to go through this
Okay.
level of detail. I will.
point to focus
Yeah.
on.
Okay.
on
So,
where our
Michael, thank
charter
you.
is, yeah,
Michael,
that
thank
Our
you.
charters is.
Way to go,
It's
Michael.
narrow. Yeah, because I don't have to go through all. I was just trying to give you this.
No,
that's-
thank you,
and
that's
that
great.
was good,
We love hearing
Yeah,
that.
and so I will go quicker, and then maybe you guys just slow me down if you guys are, or I can go through real quick, and then you guys can ask questions about some of these.
If you,
Quick and we can ask questions.
if you want to be recognized, hold up your thing. But really, it's just so much better to hold questions, given that we have 15 minutes.
Okay.
And Margaret McCahan, you can email Margaret. Sabrina can be a conduit. We all have a million questions. Excuse me, or email Sabrina, email Sabrina. I'd suggest holding our questions. Otherwise, we will never get this done in 15 minutes.
Okay.
Is that okay?
Yes, I will go quickly here.
Thank you, Margaret,
Okay.
thank you.
All right, and I'm sorry, you had what were your
Public
areas?
safety.
Public safety, transportation.
Code enforcement and transportation.
Oh, okay. All right, we have a grant staffing position, there's help funding a lieutenant. We're continuing recruiting and backgrounding funding, which we've been doing. Regional audit task force, we have some reimbursement monies that we're getting from the state that we then are gonna use for some equipment and items there. School crossing guard, we're adding ongoing a supervisor to help that. We have been doing that, but that adds that permanently, which has been very helpful. St. James Park Security, so we're adding a park ranger that'll help provide security. It's funded by that district, not the general fund item. City Hall security, we are adding 2 officers for this campus and doing some physical improvements to the safety here. And in the library, we are adding 1.5 security officers to augment the 1 security officer that they already have to do the branch libraries. This isn't the main libraries, is done differently. Okay, so environment, I really will go quick. This is not your area, right? So do you even want me to go through this one?
What's the big,
Okay.
what's the big, like, one thing?
Oh, there's not, I mean, biosolids as a staff, climate smart, that was directed in the message, it's 100,000, it's
Trash
not
capture
much.
is, I think, the one that's.
I don't really think
Trash
these
and
ones-
street sweeping would be important.
Street sweeping and And so we're adding an inspector for the street sweeping, because there was 44 miles added the other year, so this adds the staffing to help make sure that that street sweeping is done, so that's an inspector for
What was
that.
that had anything to do with litter and stuff, the trash capture?
The trash capture device, that's maintenance, those are large devices so that, for our storm system. And so it's the storm system that's for, so these are innovation and technology items. The My San Jose app would be of interest. So there's some improvements to the app and improvements to try to look at processes to try to make that work better. So there's $1.5 million for that. We're adding, in the Office of Innovation, there's a data position that we're adding to try to work. There's all these smart city, all these initiatives of things that we're trying to do, and we want to have a data person. And then we're adding for open data environment. The licensing is not a big deal. I don't think payroll's that interesting. Let's see. The integrated permit system staffing, that's just continuing staffing in planning and building, and the fire department to keep their system that hasn't gone live yet for the building permits. Probably not really your area either. Let's see. Parks irrigation technology, and that might be of more interest. We are adding, we have some smart controllers. We're adding an IT position, and we're adding some the smartphones and some technology to try to make our irrigation systems work better, so you're not watering when it's raining, or you can identify leaks quicker. And so it's trying to be more efficient in that. So there is some improvements that we're looking to do there. I'm looking at privacy and data security for their innovation roadmap. Let's see, I'm not sure that there's really anything else on that. So for education in our youth, we're adding a librarian that will help in some education initiatives like the Coding 5K, and that's funded by the library parcel tax. We're continuing ongoing funding for San Jose Learns and San Jose Works, both directed in the mayor's message and also service year. There's some funding for that. The Mayor's Gang Prevention Task Force staffing, we are adding an analyst to help with some management type of tasks. We are adding recreation program scholarships. There is some additional fee revenue we expect from in the parks in their fee programs, like their classes and their after-school programming. And so there's $100,000 more for scholarships for people that would qualify. And we're continuing walk and roll staffing. It's grant funded in DOT. And let's see, community engagement. We're adding the anti-litter staffing. We added some temporary staff. We're adding 2 positions ongoing to help out with efforts there. We're continuing staffing, city staffing for aquatics. We're having a hard time getting a third-party operator for that. We're continuing $200,000 for the Beautify San Jose grants. That's in addition to $100,000 that's ongoing in the base to support the grants there. And so we talked about the national championship. There's $50,000 for the ethnic and minority-led small business grant program that's continuing. We're adding a special events coordinator funded by the TOT fund. For placemaking and park activation, we are adding 7 positions and about $820,000 in PRNS, and about $520,000 of it is offset by grants. So there's a net cost of about $300,000, but that does the Viva Calle, Viva Parks activities and some activation at like Cesar Chavez. So let me see, I'm trying to go fast here. And we're continuing some money for the San Jose street sweeping litter and trash removal, and there's $50,000 for Silicon Valley Talent Partnership. For Sports Authority, we're adding $350,000 there, and for the Vietnamese American Community Center, we're continuing city staffing for that for another year. The goal would be to try to have that as a reuse. That one also, the city's having a hard time finding an operator there for that. All right, and I think how many more do I have here? Savings, so the airport concessions consultant and bond feasibility, they're there, that's not what was in your area. We're
New
doing some
park
of
Did
that-
it
Correct.
wrong.
Nicole?
Huh?
Hold on, Commissioner Young.
So, since we do want to really concentrate on the budget letter, I'm looking at the rest of the
Oh,
presentation.
any
I
of
don't think I may be wrong, but maybe get a consensus from others whether we need to go through these last 3 slides.
I'd like to hear them.
I would too.
Okay.
I will go really fast, so
No,
just
I think
highlight.
we've got 7 minutes.
Okay, so,
At your leisure.
I'm gonna do quick here. We are doing some steered on station area planning for this area. A lot of that's grant funded. There's 1.6 million or so that we're adding, but 1.3 of it's offset by, not grant, but it's like a service agreement with Google money, so it's offset. There's some at our convention, or cultural facilities, there's funding set aside for that. There's a number of them here. And then, I don't think we could go to the next slide. These ones for our utilities, there's no storm sewer increase. There's 3% for our sewer service and use charge fee. You may have gotten notices anyways. For the Recycle Plus garbage, a 2% increase for multifamily, 3% increase for single family. The Muni Water, if you're in the Muni Water area, there's an average about a 5.6% increase. Development fee programs, there will be some increases in some public works and planning. We're implementing that. And then there's just other fee increases and changes and decreases actually. Sometimes they'll go down depending on cost, which a lot of the fees are cost recovery, so that's that. And I think the next slide is just our next steps. There's 5 community budget meetings. I handed out the flyer for everybody. And you probably already know that as this group. The study sessions will start next week. They're May 9th through the 14th. Usually they will go through the 11th. The 14th is a hold date. And then we have the 2 public hearings on the 15th of May and then June 11th. The mayor's budget message, which I think you're trying to get your letter out, that gets released June 1st, and then you'll see the dates of they approve the message on the 12th, and we have the final adoption and the formal adoption on the 19th. So that was really quick. And I have,
Thank you.
few minutes, if there's any last questions anyone has?
Commissioner Young.
So, a question, first of all, thank you very much to the city staff for being here. That was a great presentation. I'm sorry you had to rush through part of it. I wish we had the time to listen to it. It's fascinating. And Sabrina, this may be a question for you, but my question is on the study sessions and the public budget hearings. Is it possible to have somebody, a representative from our commission there during the public comment period?
Yes, absolutely. Those are public meetings, so you guys are allowed to go for sure and make public comment. I would just be careful about talking side conversations if you're all
Right.
there.
Can we only go as residents, or can we, in other words, could the neighborhoods commission appoint a representative to go to different meetings and give our?
You could, it would have, I was gonna say have to be at the next meeting, but actually I think it would have to be the June meeting because the agenda for the next meeting is already out. You guys would have to vote on it. You'd have to vote to approve it.
Okay,
Yeah.
but we can go as residents, is that correct?
Mhm.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Sure.
Should go.
Any other questions?
Question.
Commissioner Martin?
haven't got him.
Oh, sorry.
Oh.
Commissioner Martin, then Commissioner Carter.
So in this budget number, and I was trying to follow it, where was the deferred infrastructure and maintenance kind of part of it, right? So, I mean, I know there's a lot of roadway questions and issues that keep popping up in our area, and so I'm trying to figure out where that was in the numbers that you were showing us.
And a lot of that actually that gets covered in our capital budget,
Okay,
which is the separate capital budget. I would think, you'll see like all the pavement maintenance is covered in our capital budget.
got it,
Which is also released.
got it. So it's not coming out of the general fund at all then?
The pavement maintenance is not coming out of the general fund.
Except the local sales tax.
Except for the local sales tax part, exactly. You're going where I was going with it, yeah, exactly. Okay, thank you.
Two questions, they're both kind of related. You mentioned that the city is definitely understaffed, which I recognize. Is it because, and you said lack of resources. Is it lack of resources in the human resources department and the personnel department in hiring? They can't hire, they don't have enough resources to complete the hiring? Is that what it is?
No, I mean, I think sometimes that's an issue too. We've had hiring challenges as well, so we've had that. But I think that we just don't have the financial resources, because every department, when you look at our city, and almost any general funded department here, and you compare it to any department elsewhere, we're one of the lowest, amount. We just, the revenue structure of the city and how much revenue we have, just, we can only afford so much
Are they
today.
hiring support staff to support the positions or the changes that they're making? Are they hiring support staff to go along with the changes?
Like,
Analysts,
yeah, I think,
typists, team?
right, I think we try to balance the ads to support if we're adding something. I think we try to do a good mix.
Last question.
You had, early slides, you had 6,000 FTE, these positions. I kind of get the impression that they were funded, they were billets, they were funded positions that
Right.
somebody could walk in and get hired and fill those. So I didn't understand your follow-up to there. So if 500 people came in who were qualified, you could hire 500 people because you got them funded for it.
Yeah, so the FTEs are how many of budgeted positions we have. We've had in recent years, and I think we've had an issue filling all of our vacancies, so we would have like 800 vacancies. So that's been a challenge. So we actually have been struggling with filling the positions that we do have budgeted, and we struggle with having enough budget to add more positions.
Okay. But I guess I'm sorry. So how many vacancies do you have? You're funded for 6,000 plus, but how many vacancies do you have?
I think it's like 600 around.
Oh.
And we have 1 minute. Commissioner Celestin.
Yes, mine is just where in the budget would I be able to see sort of the commitments that Google is making to us and that we are making to Google?
I don't think in the budget that it's going to get that specific. There's a proposal that describes, we have $1.6 million. It's like $1.580 or something like that, or 680. Or there is a budget proposal in there, and it'll have a little bit of information. But I think that the service, there's an agreement, I think, that there's being developed. I'm not that close to it, Jim. I'm not sure if that's gone to council or if it's going to go to council.
I think that's under development still.
It's under development, because that one I think would then probably describe in more detail. And there was an action, we originally had some, I think there was a council memo that described some of the actions about, in general, what we were expecting. So there was one council memo, I think, that's gone on that topic. I'm just not an expert on those specifics of it.
I think about February 13th, I want to say. I just looked at that, I think.
Yeah.
I'll go find it. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, thank you very much for making time for us. Thank you for the effort.
Thank you.
We really
Thank you.
appreciate your work.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Well, Pete, you got my question. Huh? You got my question.
You know, we should put that on that chart. That's the one that has the Christmas times on it.
This is a stupid new,
Look at this one. No,
it doesn't
this
have.
is Pete. Look at this one right here.
No revenue.
No.
Well,
Maintenance,
it'd be nice on here too,
Yeah,
break it out, but this is pretty broad
That's what it
anyway.
should be.
Yeah,
Yes.
the adapters get taken. Everybody hates these things.
I'm gonna go talk to her offline.
Sorry guys, I need
She
to
seems
actually go to the restroom really quick. Can you?
Goodbye.
Yeah, we'll keep going. I'm sorry guys. Sorry. Right back.
What are we doing? Ian? Yeah, I think so. Emergency break. Okay. The baseball team's rolling. What's that? I said the team's rolling.
Which team?
Oh, Giants? They didn't, fell down last night. I don't know how they're doing tonight yet.
They won really big.
Was it? Oh, good.
Like 9-3 or
Really? Yeah. They got drubbed that first game with the Dodgers. Man, but it's a mystery. Yeah.
You ever go to San Jose, John?
Once in a while, it's a little hold up.
Well, it's kind of neat because when you're in the stands and you yell you're a bum, they look up into the stands wondering.
I'll meet you in the parking lot. No, the part that bothers me is the guy, the mascot, in the porta potty, and you're throwing toilet paper rolls in it. It's just, that kind of stuff. We always sit on the third base side, so that I certainly know all the actions of the first.
I have a couple of retired friends, and they hit every game. Yeah, he says it's great entertainment for the price.
It's hard to you get free most of the time.
Yeah.
Orchard's got stacks of tickets.
Yeah.
Now we go 3 times.
The one I enjoyed, I hadn't been in years. I took my son to San Jose Earthquakes at the new stadium. Yeah, because I used to work at FMC when it was.
Oh, did you?
Yeah. So it was kind of neat just going there, going, okay, but it's a beautiful stadium, and it's kind of intimate. It's not 50, 60,000. I don't know what it is. It's like 20,000 people.
Oh, it's NC.
But it was a lot of fun. David, did you know John Truitt at FMC? No.
No, that's
Oh,
why we're trying to pull it up.
what department? What
That's what we're
department?
doing. That's just for
spent a lot of
for our
time in Europe.
health.
I was there 78 to 88.
He
was there during that
There you go.
I hired on at 10,000 people, and by the time I left, there was 5,000 people.
Oh,
By the way, for you hockey fans, the Sharks are up 3-0.
All right. Which means that they're going to get out right about the time that we will. That should be fun. Not for us, football. Hey, by the way, are you aware of the gun thing at the Quilt Museum? There's a gun quilt museum thing.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Gun?
I'm going to go over it. Yeah.
Gun quilt?
Kind of anti-gun,
It's for
quick
some
kill
victims
victims.
of. I was with Supervisor Cortese on Saturday with his group.
Did you go over there and see it? Oh, yeah.
I am going to go.
Yeah, I'm going to go see it, actually, yeah. My wife quilts, and that gives us something to talk about.
Yep.
there was. Yeah, I think you guys.
And mine's in crafts too.
Is it? Yeah, it's a mystery. I make sawdust.
Keeps you off the streets though.
What's that?
It keeps you off the streets.
The quilts?
No.
Yes.
Three of you.
No, sawdust. Yeah. So you track it.
Well, Cheryl's in a wheelchair, so I'm doing all the gardening now.
Jonathan? Probably posting up, signs or something.
Yeah.
For, the one where I finally showed up. I think it's one of those
Okay,
before we can't
here's the
both be
letter.
in the same
What's up?
room. There can't be two Jonathans. It's kind of conscious of it.
You'll be there tomorrow, right?
Yes, but
Our
we're
vice chair, that's
coming.
yeah.
It's moved to 7:30.
Yes.
So we're going to go. Gary and I are going to go to the
Okay,
funeral.
guys.
Okay.
Leave it.
We're on.
Thank you.
That person.
All right,
Used to be
so
Sabrina.
8:20.
Used to be
Mia?
Sabrina.
So we're gonna resume. So we have until like 9:10 to review this. I wrote a draft, high level. It tells a story. It may be too colorful for you. It may be not colorful enough. It may not have the piece you want. It is a draft, and for the record, for the video, I want to make sure that it's clear that it says draft all over the place and that that's visible. Do you guys want to review it? Do you want me to read it?
Yes, please.
Do you have some hard copies?
Do you have hard copies, Nicole?
No.
Which is why we're doing this.
Yeah, no, just read it. I think that's fine.
Do you want- Show of hands. Reading it? Not reading it? Okay, I'm going to read it. Dear Mayor and City Council, in accordance with the Neighborhoods Commission's charter, this letter communicates key concerns residents have posed to commissioners over the past year. The Commission acknowledges that San Jose is on the rise and recommends internally leveraging dollars, teams, and data assets to address blight, public safety, and community engagement. It is an exciting time to live in San Jose. Our diverse police force is rising, with its largest class of recruits in recent history.
Are we gonna
Can
make
we just
comments
let her
as we
read
go
it?
along,
No.
or what? We're
I'm
not?
gonna read
Let
it.
her finish
read
it,
it.
and then we'll come back.
If we do it that way,
No, no, that's fine.
sure, we can do it that way,
No, that's
but
fine.
set your timer for 2020. Okay, it's an exciting time to live in San Jose. Our diverse police force is rising with the largest class of recruits in recent history. Companies of all sizes are starting up, relocating, or planning investment in San Jose's downtown transit center, all without wasteful city tax incentives. San Jose's multimedia arts and cultural assets continue to blossom. This is San Jose's moment. Lagging far behind these groundbreaking developments, less than half of city residents report San Jose is a great place to live. For the moment, we can still be perceived as a tired and tan bedroom community. To fully realize San Jose's potential for all residents, we recommend continuing to address the undertow, blight, and poor pavements caused by years of underinvestment as the city recovered from the Great Recession, coupled with investments in community engagement. 3 key areas and recommendations follow. Under code enforcement, illegal dumping, abandoned vehicles, and graffiti continue to scar the face of our city. The Commission suggests continued investment in the My San Jose app, leveraging data to reinvest saved labor hours and crucial faster turnaround. A public dashboard tool will be valuable to enable community partners to address hotspots or ongoing dump sites. In addition, the Commission respectfully requests the City Auditor to include key performance indicators for illegal dumping and vehicle abatement in the city's audit report.
Offensive to the council. If we put that in there, when they've told us it's not in our charter, I don't see any reason for that, and I think it actually is going to make some of the council members upset.
Oh, no, it's not.
Hold, side guys, please, respectful, bring it all back. Hello.
I'm just
Okay.
putting my hands up.
Commissioner Hammond, thank you.
You're welcome.
I have a brand-new homeless encampment behind my house, and yeah, it's offensive. It's also unsafe for my community. We've had burglaries. Unfortunately, there's very few burglary officers available. It's unsafe. I don't know how you can say that this isn't something we should address. We definitely should be addressing this.
It's adjacent to.
Commissioner Velasquez.
I think it's perfectly summed up. While it is out of our scope, right, we're acknowledging that, but even in my district, District 7, we're smack dab in the middle of everything, right? This is the number one thing that we hear.
Me too.
So it'd be kind of, re-acknowledging that, right, that, this does affect us, right, everyone who lives there.
I think if we don't include it, I hear about it may be offensive. I feel like if we don't include it and the public reads it, it makes us look kind of clueless.
It does.
Like you keep talking, like everything I tell you is homelessness. I think you're responsible for homelessness. You tell me you're not, but I expect you to do it, and then you don't even acknowledge it anywhere. That's the goal there. Let's see if there's anyone else who hasn't spoken yet. Commissioner Martin.
So it is a public safety issue, it is a
Yeah.
code enforcement issue,
I know.
it does come underneath our privy.
No, it's-
And yes, we have talked about it over and over and over again, and I don't want this to turn into a homeless discussion,
Okay.
please. So, I'm okay with the way it's written.
Commissioner Cunningham.
Okay. I've raised this issue at several meetings, even outside the venue of the commission, because it's countywide. The county needs to step up and take more. It affects San Jose, but unfortunately, San Jose is doing the lion's share of the work in the county. I don't see a homeless issue in Cupertino or Campbell or several other cities, and they got the money. They have the money, and I've raised this at county meetings and all that. I think the paragraph is fine the way it is. We address it.
Okay. Commissioner.
Nicole, can we take a vote on whether we accept this
Yes.
paragraph as is?
From
No,
a
that's
process
not good.
standpoint, let's hold off, just because I get where you're going. Commissioner Young, this is the last comment,
So, yeah, sure. So,
not for you, but last of
yeah,
this
no, I
section.
understand, no problem. So again, you said for the public, this is not going to the public.
Yes, it
My
is.
understanding, unless I'm
It's a public
incorrect,
document.
it's going to the
Public document.
council members
It's gonna get
and
posted
the
on
mayor.
Nextdoor, it's gonna get
I'm sorry?
posted everywhere.
So,
So for process question regarding this goes in as part of one of the MBAs that comes out of the city manager's office, which means that it's a public document.
NDA being,
MBA, Mayor's Budget Addendum, that's what
Okay.
it stands for. So it will be published and it will be available. you'd have to find it, and then there will be a cover memo, which I will write, and then it will be attached underneath it, but it's a public document, so,
Okay.
yeah.
But I'm
It'll be
posting
found
it,
faster if we say something silly.
I'm posting it on Nextdoor. The minute it's, the minute it finds its way into the public, that's what my people want to know. What is it you do?
I share it with my HOA too.
I share it one, like.
And whether,
Okay.
okay, good. I
So
don't
what do
want
we
to
do
get
now?
hung up. Okay, so thank you for the feedback there. I think the next piece then is if we're doing an executive summary, what does that look like? What is it comprised of? What are we highlighting? Commissioner
My
Celeste.
suggestion is that we just say, here are the 3 challenges our neighborhoods face, and here's our recommendation to address that challenge.
I'm going to take notes as well.
Yeah.
Okay. What's number 1?
It's your 3 bullets.
It's 3.
He means the 3 headers
So
in the
we'll do
section of your
freaking
thing.
transportation safety.
Oh, got it.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Sorry, I didn't mean to speak out of order.
Code enforcement.
We'll open it nice with we're the neighborhoods commission, we represent, we've got, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
The who we are sentence,
Yeah.
and then just get into it.
Okay. So executive summary, key takeaway. I'll ask Sabrina what city speak is for just read this.
Yeah.
So code enforcement. So what is the key item?
Well, if we go to her comments that she's already done.
But just for overall feedback. Michael, did you have a specific thing that you like?
I'm sorry, on code enforcement?
Yeah.
I would defer to Commissioner Carter.
Okay.
That
Sorry.
was for staffing.
Staffing.
Increased
Okay.
staffing.
Increase
Michael had.
Yeah.
staffing for code enforcement. Okay. The code enforcement.
It wouldn't be I thought that was the purpose of you doing the comments.
I'm just putting it in the executive summary, that's all. It's still here, it's still in the comments, it's
Okay.
just, I'm adding.
But I would think, we came up with 6 things,
Right.
and a couple of them were things that you had mentioned. Those should just be put up there. I mean, that
Right.
was, yeah.
But I'm just for my own sanity.
Okay, all right.
Just to absorb it. So code enforcement is increased staffing for code enforcement. Public safety.
San Jose, yeah.
Public safety now.
Public safety is
Traffic.
Code enforcement
illegal
stuff.
fireworks.
No, I mean for what matters, right? It's our focus on the fireworks.
Code enforcement
And-
doesn't come under fireworks.
Traffic, we haven't,
Traffic enforcement is code enforcement. Because right now they only have 7 officers.
so if we're talking about 2 things, if we're saying we want to add traffic enforcement,
But that's.
we want to add it down in public safety.
Yes.
Yeah.
We want to add making this document longer than 2 pages.
Yes, houses, cars.
Well, there's actually several additions that are recommended for this section, so
I'm trying to get the count.
I don't know if this is now when you guys want to vote, do your straw votes on what to include and what to exclude.
That's a good point. Okay, so to get to a bulleted section for code enforcement, how many bullets do we want to include for code enforcement?
No
I
more
I
guess
think
we-
some of those you could summarize.
Okay.
There's 3 or 4 on substations. There's a couple on the fireworks.
And we have speeders.
Yeah, I mean, that probably captures all.
So again,
I don't want traffic
So, but I feel like we need to cut on
Yeah.
Commissioner
so,
Young.
yes, so, again, I might be the only one that's not in favor of opening up more substations, but I would, rather than put it in the letter without us taking a vote, is it possible to
We can
poll or
vote,
take a vote?
we can vote on the list here if we want.
Okay.
I think from the high level standpoint that I wrote this at, that seems acceptable. Adding more doesn't, adding more doesn't help, if you will. So, let's take a vote on
Sure.
to include or not to include.
Yes.
Okay.
Can I make a suggestion?
Please.
Why don't we put everything in it now and then come back at the next meeting? Because it's too confusing, what's in, what's out. Let's give us something that we can swing at. Because right now, you know, I don't think there is a police substation in North San Jose, for example. So let's get everything down on there, detail it, write it, then come back and pull out the sections that we don't want.
Except I'd like to get a feel for whether I should take I like that idea, and I'd like to get a feel for whether I should take the time to write that all out, research it, you know, like, I'm happy to do whatever it takes, and it takes time to do that. So, if there's a, I think illegal fireworks stays, people can sing out not. Funding for staffing, for enforcement. I think so. I mean,
Let's just vote.
That was the only controversial one, I think,
what,
was the
substations?
substation.
Okay, let's vote. So,
Can I say something before you vote?
yes.
Okay. What I'd like to say is there is no North San Jose substation. It's an Alviso substation. I had a gun put in my face 2 years ago, and it took the police department 45 minutes to get to my house. If there had been a substation open in Alviso, it would have taken 2 minutes. I could walk there in 5.
Okay. All right. So the question then on the table, I'll write up the items that we include, but fireworks will be there. Additional staffing will be included because it sort of has to be. Making the website available year-round will be part of adding to fireworks. And then the questions about substations and fire stations seem to be the main thing. So let's vote on whether I should write up a paragraph on substations. So if you're in favor
Is
of
it,
Is it a
Oh,
paragraph?
it's a paragraph or just add, we're just agreeing whether or
Just a
not it should be
sentence?
included at all?
It
It
doesn't
needs to be a
make sense there.
paragraph.
Oh, in addition, by the way, after all this about illegal fireworks, by the way, you should make all these substations open. I could. I mean, I don't know. If you guys think it's like a 1 or 2 sentence thing, that's fine.
Yeah. I don't
Oh, that's
see
fine.
it.
Oh, I didn't see it.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay, that's fine. Then I'll do, Pete, thank you for the suggestion. I'll do that. I'll write up everything in a short way. And then I'll write up the executive summary based on that. And then at the next meeting, we'll need pretty much the whole meeting.
I think
We don't have the whole meeting. We'll need as much possible time.
You guys always have a decision to defer things on your agenda, but yeah.
We'll see about that. Okay.
I just
Which
have
is
a
next
very
year's
quick
agenda.
question. Um,
It's June's
Are we
agenda.
including like a sentence about opening and closed substations? Or
Or-
just specifically
I
to
think
these
that's all it is.
districts?
I'm going to add what Commissioner Cole suggested was add it all in and then let us take it out next week. Because then we can actually see the full picture and the full impact. So I don't think there's anything to vote on. Commissioner Cunningham.
I have a question on the timing, and I realize, you know, next month we have a jammed agenda. We used to meet 2.5 hours, and that was reduced down to 2 hours. Is there any, and I don't know what the driver is for this, and I don't know what the availability of the other commissioners are. Is it possible, we have a normal start time at 6, could we possibly start at 5:30? If we have a hard stop at
Not
9
anymore.
o'clock.
Not anymore.
No, because
Not
the agenda's published.
What's that?
The agenda's
It's for the-
published.
We can't do that to the public.
Yeah. The agenda, it starts at
But we
6,
could
it's on the
extend
agenda. You could extend it, you could run over.
But I really don't want to do that.
No, but.
No, but I'm just saying,
but
You know,
just-
we got, 10 pounds of stuff in a 5 pound.
But I feel like if we're substantially agreed on the format, then I feel like we can get through it next week. The key piece will be the bullets at the top and making sure that those are clear and coherent and meaningful. But I don't think that will be an issue.
We just have to vote and not talk. I mean, you vote
'Cause we're done for
and
that?
majority says it's there, it stays, we're done. If it isn't, it goes. Cause she's right, because we still have the bylaws to this.
Oh,
And there's the caucus, people will be done with the caucuses by then, there'll
caucus.
be a report, there'll be some movement.
I'm gonna
in
do
the
that
ICOC.
written.
No, but I'm just
We
saying,
don't take time
like,
on it.
it's,
So putting a note on the
There.
door saying we started early, sorry, doesn't work.
it's
No. Okay, all right, so then,
Why not?
then the next step, we're gonna finish up, the next step then is I'll incorporate the feedback that Sabrina captured, and then any other feedback that I can think of. I'll have as much of the kitchen sink in that document as possible. I'll make as many syntactic changes as I can, and then at the next meeting, we'll review it. It will be part of the package for review in advance, right? It will get sent in advance?
If you can get it to me by tomorrow afternoon.
I think I can.
Okay, yeah.
Well, then it gives the commissioners time to review it, but again, review it with the intention that your review time is not gonna equal the amount of time you have to make changes at the meeting. Like maybe 1 or 2 changes or ideas, and then we'll probably do a roundtable. I think that might be the most effective, if we can do it quickly. So Commissioner Cole said you've done this before. Do you have any thoughts or feedback other than the format preference? No? Okay. He's what? Good, okay.
It's a short timer.
Is there anything else?
Thoughtful, not thoughtless.
Okay, we are adjourned. Thank